Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping straight into a really critical situation developing right now, October 2025, in the Southern Caribbean. We're talking about the military crisis escalating between the U.S. and Venezuela. Our mission here is to give you the shortcut, unpack the legal moves, the military buildup, the diplomacy. It's a lot. So the basics. The U.S. has sent, well, a massive amount of naval and air power. They're calling it a fight against narco-terrorists. And they've conducted lethal strikes. We know of at least 21 deaths since early September based on our sources.
Right. And Venezuela's view, they're calling it warlike aggression, pure and simple.
Saying it's just a pretext, right, to get at their oil reserve.
Exactly. And caught right in the middle, geographically and politically, is Trinidad and Tobago. They're navigating this with a very, very risky strategy, kind of a dual-track approach is how we're seeing it.
Okay, let's get into that. But first, the legal angle. Because this whole military action seems to hinge on a redefinition, not like a traditional act of war.
That's the crucial piece. It really kicked off earlier this year, 2025. The U.S. designated groups like Venezuela's Tren de Aragua, you've probably heard of them, as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs. That shifts things away from just standard law enforcement.
Okay, FTO designation. And then what happened?
Then came the really big move. On October 2nd, just recently, the U.S. officially told Congress it's now in a non-international armed conflict, a NIAC, with these cartels.
A NIAC, what does that practically mean?
It means they assert the right to treat people they target as unlawful combatants. So they can use lethal military force, potentially anywhere globally, against these individuals. And critically, it bypasses the need for Congress to actually declare war.
Wow. So just changing the label lets them wage a kind of war without declaring it.
That's essentially it. And that legal framework, it justifies the type of military hardware we're seeing deployed.
Right, because this isn't just Coast Guard patrols we're talking about.
Not at all. If it were purely counter-narcotics, you wouldn't need what's down there now.
Exactly. We're seeing the Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group, the ARG plus the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, the MEU. I mean, that's a force that can launch a major amphibious assault.
It is. And add F-35 stealth fighters, a nuclear attack sub like the USS Newport News. The consensus from sources is clear. This is vastly disproportionate for just chasing drug smugglers.
It sends a coercive message aimed straight at the Maduro regime in Venezuela.
Which brings us back to Trinidad and Tobago, walking this incredibly fine line.
Their dual-track strategy. Let's unpack track one.
Track one is pure economics. Survival. Port of Spain managed to get a 6-month license from OFAC.
That's the U.S. Sanctions Office.
Correct. A license allowing them to negotiate directly with Caracas, with Venezuela, to develop the Dragon gas field.
That's huge. A major economic lifeline for them, negotiated right under the nose of this U.S. pressure campaign.
A real pragmatic win. But then there's track two, the security side.
Oh. At the same time they're getting the gas deal, the prime minister there took a really hard line, publicly, urging the U.S., and this is a quote, to kill them all violently, talking about the narco-terrorists.
Wow, strong words.
Extremely. And crucially, offer the U.S. military access to Trinidad and Tobago's territory to conduct operations.
Which Venezuela would see as?
As basically letting the U.S. launch attacks from their doorstep. Venezuela condemned it immediately, called it tantamount to a declaration of war against them.
And this isn't just high-level politics. It's hitting ordinary people, right? Our sources talk about Trinidadian fishermen. They work waters near the Venezuelan coast.
Yeah, and now they're terrified.
Terrified of being mistaken for one of these narco-terrorists by U.S. forces and, well, getting hit by a lethal strike.
So they're abandoning their traditional productive fishing grounds. It's directly impacting their livelihoods.
That's the human cost right there. And Venezuela isn't just sitting back. They're pushing back with what you'd call an asymmetric strategy. They're mobilizing their Bolivarian militia, they claim. Over 4 million members, though who knows the real number.
Okay.
And they're making direct threats, saying if any neighbor allows U.S. attacks from their soil, they'll face retaliation.
So putting it all together for you listening, what we're really witnessing here feels less like a focused counter-drug mission.
Yeah.
And much more like a sustained, intense campaign of pressure, maybe destabilization, aimed at Venezuela.
And given the legal groundwork they've laid, the NIC declaration, the sheer amount of military gear deployed, this looks like it's set up to continue for the long haul.
So this heightened military presence isn't temporary.
Well, that leads to the big question, doesn't it? The U.S. has set this legal precedent, this non-international armed conflict. They've deployed major long-term infrastructure. They're even reactivating old facilities in Puerto Rico. So maybe the real strategic takeaway here, the thing for you to think about, is this. Is this highly militarized U.S. posture in the Caribbean actually becoming the new normal? Could this permanently shift the security dynamics for the entire hemisphere?
Es muy grande la causa que defendemos. Así que el cambio de régimen, además de ilegal, es inmoral. Y aquí no lograrán ni colonizar, ni esclavizar, ni a Venezuela, ni a América del Sur, ni a nuestra América. Y si algún día tocan a Venezuela, toda la América se levantará por nosotros, por el pueblo de Bolívar.
Donald Trump, usted tiene que cuidarse, porque Marco Rubio quiere manchar sus manos de sangre, con sangre suramericana, caribeña, con sangre venezolana. Lo quieren llevar a un baño de sangre y que su apellido, Trump, se manche de sangre por los siglos de los siglos. Si Venezuela fuera agredida, pasaría inmediatamente al periodo de lucha armada en defensa del territorio nacional y de la historia y del pueblo de Venezuela. Y declararíamos constitucionalmente a la República en armas. Lucha armada y República en armas. De norte a sur, de este a oeste, para garantizar la paz, la soberanía y el desarrollo del país en cualquier circunstancia que nos toque.
En el mundo, para que con amor y la experiencia que tengan, y le digamos a Donald Trump, con Venezuela, no te metas. Hand off Venezuela. Donald Trump, hands off Venezuela. De inmediati. Triunfo. Nuestra venganza será el campeonato para Venezuela. Venezuela este año se ha hecho la vuelta al tache. De inmediati.
Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar dismissed speculation that Trinidad and Tobago could be drawn into any military conflict with Venezuela. Speaking to reporters, she responded to Venezuela Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, warning TNT not to provoke that country.
I will dare to do what I have to do to keep the people of Trinidad and Tobago safe, and that is my priority. I've said TNT first. That is my priority. I have no intention, we've had no discussions of invading Venezuela, of stepping onto Venezuelan soil. Nothing of the sort is happening.
With the United States in Caribbean waters, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar continues to welcome them, noting that it's not the first time they're here.
If that can help us stem the criminality, the trafficking, the narco-trafficking, the human trafficking, and the pain and suffering that brings to the people here, then yes, we welcome them and look forward to their cooperation with us.
However, she insisted that Trinidad and Tobago will do what is necessary if its neighbor Guyana is in trouble.
A lot of this fear-mongering, there have been no discussions with the U.S. or anyone else. However, I repeat, should Venezuela invade Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago will definitely step forward in defense of our cousins or brothers and sisters in the CARICOM.
The Prime Minister pointed out that CARICOM's response has been slowed by recent elections in member states, but insisted unity remains the goal.
I think we've had a little bit of a setback given the two elections taking place in the CARICOM and the chairman of the CARICOM. We congratulate Prime Minister Holness, of course, and President Irfan. Their elections would have put I'm not casting any blame here, I'm just saying it might have dampened a cohesive response from the entire CARICOM. But we have always had differences, and that's another thing that is a false narrative. The CARICOM has always had differences, and that's why we say we are sovereign, but at the same time, we speak with one voice. So there are issues that will have differences of opinion.
She also addressed criticism that certain CARICOM countries are fractured over the Venezuela issue.
St. Vincent and Grenadines has always had a different kind of opinion to other members of the CARICOM. That is not to say that we are fractured. On this matter, or the Venice matter, and the Americans in our waters, CARICOM is already fractured. Several members went off to a meeting, the ALBA meeting. Trinidad is not a member of that regional body, ALBA, and made comments and gave statements long before I even stepped onto the plate. So we will have differences, but I think at the end we'll adhere together.
However, the Prime Minister said TNT remains committed to the CARICOM and to its CARICOM neighbours, noting that this country will work with them in every way possible. Sonolala, TTT News.
Also, the government of Venezuela addressed on Friday the reaction of Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar in response to a legitimate complaint made by President Nicolas Maduro about criminal elements entering the country from the Trinidadian territory. Through an official statement, the government assured that Venezuela has captured criminals of Trinidadian origin who have confessed to their plans, statements that have been duly substantiated with compelling evidence presented by the competent authorities. Furthermore, the Venezuelan government stated that the appropriate response to this serious situation is to offer cooperation and willingness to clarify the facts. The Prime Minister's virulent and bombastic attitude raises serious suspicions of complicity in these incursions and compromises the good cooperative relations that exist between our countries in fundamental areas. In its closing remarks, the statement urged the authorities of Trinidad and Tobago not to lend themselves to geopolitical games that are alien to the interest of our peoples and reaffirm its commitment to peace, sovereignty, and mutual respect, recalling that any legitimate concerns should be channeled through diplomatic channels, not through threats or unfounded statements that only fuel artificial tensions.
Mr. President, do you anticipate more strikes on Venezuela's coast? Do you think we will start doing strikes on the mainland Venezuela? Are you concerned that Maduro might escalate something?
Yeah, I know exactly what's happening. A lot of drugs are coming out of Venezuela. A lot of Trinidad, they're trying to get out, but we're stopping them successfully at the border in Venezuela. We have a tremendous amount of security. They're sending Trinidad, that's the gang, probably the worst gang in the world, MS-13 them. I think they're probably considered worse. And we don't like what Venezuela is sending us, whether it's their drugs or whether it's their gang members. We don't like it. We don't like it one bit.
Mr. President, do you anticipate more strikes on Venezuela's coast?
Well, we'll see what happens. There's certainly not a lot of boats out there, I'll tell you, since the first strike and then to a lesser extent the second. We don't see we almost see no boats out there, which is fine as far as I'm concerned. There's been very little boat traffic. I can't imagine why.
And just on that, do you think we will start doing strikes on the mainland Venezuela?
Oh, we'll see what happens. Look, Venezuela is sending us their gang members, their drug dealers, and drugs. It's not acceptable.
Just one more on Venezuela. The president of Venezuela called the strike on the boat illegal. Are you concerned that Maduro might escalate something?
No, what's illegal are the drugs that were on the boat and the drugs that are being sent into our country. And the fact that 300 million people died last year from drugs, that's what's illegal.
Do you think he's not telling the truth when he said it was a fisherman's boat? Do you think that he's
you could see it. You saw the bags of white everything right through the bags. It's nonsense. So we knew it before they even left. We knew it before they even left. We knew exactly where it came from, where the drugs came from, and where it was heading. I mean, the problem is nobody's getting on boats anymore, so maybe that's a good problem.
That they can do whatever they want on Venezuelan territory, but they cannot come here. TNT territory is off limits to them.
On Thursday, Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar made it clear to Venezuela that Trinidad and Tobago will defend its borders by any means necessary.
We have to take all threats against any incursion into our territory seriously. I will speak to Minister of Defense and Attorney General to seek advice on protections for our Coast Guard, to use deadly force on any unidentified vessel entering TT waters from Venezuela.
Her statement follows recent comments made by Venezuelan officials, including its Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello, citing unverified claims of Trinidadian involvement in paramilitary activity, where its minister vowed to pursue anyone attempting to destabilize Venezuela.
With respect to a paramilitary group entering Venezuela from Trinidad, I say categorically we have no evidence to validate this at this point. I saw also in today's paper where the Venezuelan Justice Minister claimed that the Trinidadian Kendall Geron was supposedly captured in this group. Again, we have seen no evidence to support the comments from these Venezuelan officials.
Meanwhile, after speaking with the Chief of Defense Staff on the issue, Minister of Defense Wayne Sturge confirmed that no radar or intelligence data supported Venezuela's claims.
With the assurance that the radars did not pick up any such activity, and that quite apart from the radars, there was no evidence to substantiate the claims made by the Venezuelan government at this time.
However, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar says it's all too familiar a script from the neighboring nation.
We will also have to take a look at how we go forward with Venezuelan migrants here who are military-aged and able-bodied men and women. We have to take this threat seriously now. They have done this before. They made similar propaganda comments about Guyana and Colombia whenever they had interior political problems or elections, and then they engaged in border skirmishes with violence.
She also issued a stern warning to TNT nationals.
I want to tell further TNT drug and human traffickers, smugglers, who are masquerading as fishermen. If you enter Venice waters to do your illegal acts and you're caught by Venice authorities, you are on your own. I repeat, you are on your own. No amount of family crying on Ian's programs will cause us to intervene.
And she dispelled claims of any U.S. involvement.
Again, throwing out the tired old bogey of blame the Yankees, and he also condemned treatment of Venice abroad who have fled their homeland. Now they have started with TNT.
Sonolala, TTT News.
An escalation of the effort to combat illegal drug smuggling by the cartels. President Trump has ordered 3 Navy destroyers to be deployed to South American waters just off of Venezuela. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro responding now by calling for a nationwide military enlistment and vowing to deploy millions of his own troops. The move coming months after the State Department designated several cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Designation also given to other transnational criminal groups like MS-13 and Venezuela's own Tren de Aragua. News Nation correspondent Jorge Ventura joining us live with more tonight. And Jorge, it appears the U.S. and Venezuela are moving closer to a direct confrontation.
Natasha, that's right. We are seeing these escalating tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela. This is coming after the White House did deploy over 4,000 sailors and Marines to the waters of Latin America to potentially strike drug cartels. That's also going to be including 3 Navy destroyers. Now, we have not confirmed when those Navy destroyers will arrive, but we are expecting soon. And this is all coming as the United States continues to target Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuelan President Maduro also responding and says he will deploy up to 5 million militia members in Venezuela. And he called the deployment a threat to Venezuela's sovereignty, saying, quote, "The empire has gone mad." Washington accuses Maduro of being one of the largest narco traffickers in the world, and it's allegedly the head of Venezuela's Cartel de los Solos, a network blamed for smuggling cocaine and fentanyl-laced drugs into United States cities. The Justice Department recently also doubled its reward for the capture of Maduro to $50 million. That's the highest ever by the DEA, and officials say these cartels are using international airspace and waters to move deadly drugs into the United States.
The Cartel de los Soles, which is a criminal organization that happens to masquerade as a government. The Maduro regime is not a government. It's not a legitimate government. We've never recognized them as such. They are a criminal enterprise that basically has taken control of national territory of a country, and who, by the way, are also threatening U.S. oil companies that are operating lawfully in Guyana. So the president's been very firm. Anything that's a threat to the national security of the United States, he's going to confront.
Now, investigators also claim that Maduro has provided support to Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, but Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum insists there is no evidence that links the Venezuelan president to the drug cartel. This also comes as Mexico continues to double down and say that they will not allow any U.S. military intervention into Mexico. And Natasha, this is also coming as the DEA and the DOD recently held an intelligence sharing event with Mexican officials. So there's more speculation if we could potentially see a U.S. military operation in Mexico now that we are now seeing 4,000 Marines deployed to the waters of Latin America, Natasha.
It is interesting. Jorge Ventura with that live report in San Antonio, Texas tonight. Thank you. A brand new...
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.
What happens if Venezuela flies jets over U.S. naval vessels again?
Well, I would say they're going to be in trouble. We'll let them know about that. We heard that happen, but it wasn't really over, not like they described. But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want, okay? If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you can, you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do, all right? Sure. Say it.
How close did they get? You said the planes did not.
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but if they do put us in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down.
The Maduro regime is pushing back today. In fact, they say the U.S. seeks regime change through military threat. Your reaction to those words, and also, would you like to see regime change in Venezuela?
Well, we're not talking about that, but we are talking about the fact that you had an election which was a very strange election, to put it mildly. I'm being very nice when I say that. I can only say that billions of dollars of drugs are pouring into our country from Venezuela. The prisons of Venezuela have been opened up to our country. They've taken their prisoners, the worst prisoners, murderers, Tren de Aragua. The worst prisoners that you can ever imagine are now happily living in the United States of America. And when I see boats coming in, like loaded up the other day with all sorts of drugs, probably fentanyl mostly, but all sorts of drugs, we're going to take them out. And if people want to have fun going on the high seas or the low seas, they're going to be in trouble.
Y siempre las imágenes de guerra suelen ser un poco extrañas, pero yo creo que no se van a poner a mentir con eso, y la inteligencia artificial sí se puede prestar para tantas cosas, pero cuando es algo así tan serio, yo supongo que no. De todas maneras, es una noticia muy reciente que es muy probable que en estas próximas horas, en los próximos días, seguramente va a haber más información. Sí es una situación preocupante porque él dice que es por cosas de drogas, pero otros lados dicen que están pidiendo dinero de recompensa, que le den información por el presidente para ver si lo consiguen.
Esperamos un cambio por el bien de todos los venezolanos. Un grupo de familias, llámese Maduro, Flores, Cabello, que son los que están gobernando este país, o los Rodríguez, que son los dueños, digamos, del Valle, los nuevos amos del Valle, que se creen los dueños de Venezuela, no pueden dominar 30 millones de seres humanos que somos los venezolanos. 30 millones que estamos a la expectativa.
Ayer sacaron un decreto mintiendo y que Venezuela no acepta a los migrantes y los vamos a buscar con nuestros aviones. ¿Cómo que no los aceptamos, presidente Donald Trump? Yo le hablo cara a cara para que le llegue el mensaje, porque ahí lo están engañando. Y lo engaña uno y lo engaña el otro, como lo engañaron en su primer gobierno, para envenenarlo contra el pueblo de Venezuela. Y yo salgo en defensa de la dignidad, del honor y la decencia del pueblo valiente de Venezuela y de la migración venezolana en los Estados Unidos. Somos gente de bien. Ya basta de campañas de descrédito. Ya basta de mentira. Y lo digo desde Aragua. Aquí, tierra libre de delincuentes.
Venezuela para el periodo 2025-2031.